It's so funny to always imagine that you wouldn't be in the minds if such a scheme were to be implemented, I said, responding to Asmongold, saying society would instantly and dramatically improve if we took the bottom 5 to 10% of the most R-worded kids out of school and put them in the coal mines instead. Almost all Western cultural problems derive from an adherence to the false god of equity. To which I responded with, it's so funny to always imagine that you wouldn't be in the minds if such a scheme were to be implemented. To which Mighty Keith responded with, I find it wild. He says horrible things like this about a parent's mentally disabled children, but when people bring up his dead mom, he cries on YouTube about how the world's being mean to him. I don't get it, lol. XQ said he isn't referring to mentally disabled children, but actually depicting unintelligent ones. For most people, his opinion about the topic doesn't warrant an ad hominem about his dead relative. Hope this offers some guidance on this topic, says XQC. To which, once again, Mighty Keith's point here isn't that it is appropriate to shit on Asmongold's mother. He's saying, like, if you can understand how inappropriate it is to have someone shit on your mom, which I agree, by the way, it is inappropriate. You know, why are you making these broad declarative statements? Empathy begets empathy. Then he says, he specifically said R-worded children, which by definition are mentally disabled kids. You aren't putting your own interpretation on it. I'm using reality. You're putting your own interpretation on it. I'm using reality. Saying the ad hominem on Asmon is bad, but the ad hominem on parents who have disabled kids is okay is hypocritical. Putting actually mentally disabled children in coal mines would, I assume, endanger them. Even Asmon knows this. You are misreading obvious dialogue cues. Okay, what if they're stupid kids? Like, what if they're just not, like, full-blown mentally disabled kids, but what if they're just, like, the bottom 10%? How do we make this assessment on who is the bottom 10%? The entire conversation is idiotic. So don't interpret his actual words he's using as what he means. Assume he means something else. You're an idiot. I assume I mean that however you want. Surely no one still uses derogatory terms in different ways in their literal definition. The underlying basis for this argument is eugenics. This is genetic predetermination talk happening on the timeline, and you have XQC who under normal circumstances would absolutely fall in the 5 to 10% bottom intelligence quotient, talking about how, well, actually, you know, maybe this is a good idea. Maybe he put forward this strategy because he truly believes that this would be beneficial for society. It's like, what is going on? What are we doing here? Everyone has lost their goddamn minds, it seems. All it took was for Donald Trump to come out and say some insane nonsense for half of the streamers to be like, yeah, actually, we should be sending people to the coal mines by force if they're too stupid to study. If you take this statement seriously, if you don't understand how psychotic this policy would look like if implemented, you probably are in the 5 to 10% bottom intelligence and you would be sent to the coal mines. That's the irony here. All of the people that are liking that tweet would be in the coal mines. It's the same idiotic fantasy of a guy with a busted down 1994 Honda Civic thinking that if there was an anarcho-capitalist dystopian future, that they would somehow magically become a factory owner and enslave the rest of the population. Brother, you are basically servile right now. Why the f do you think if the systems that have kept you alive in spite of the best interest of your bosses and the people that dominate society right now, if they were left unchecked, why the f do you think you would magically become the factory owner? You would be a slave. Actually, you would probably not even make it to the slave class. You would just be melted for biomatter. This is something that I don't understand. Americans are so oblivious to class consciousness. They're so far removed from understanding their class position that they literally fantasize about one day being the foreman of the factory in an anarcho-capitalist dystopia. Yeah, dude, it was the rules that was actually stopping you from achieving this unlimited success that you will get. Meanwhile, you're trying to Sigma grindset your way out of your shitty dead-end job as you are being melted down to your core. If you can't make it within the confines where these regulatory agencies have basically prevented your bosses from you to death, then how the f do you think you're going to make it when there's no rules? They're just going to literally force you into the salt mine, and once you are discarded like an old horse with a severe injury, you're going to be sent to the glue factory. Why are you so upset? Because stupidity is not only offensive, but it's incredibly frustrating. This level of stupidity. How are you not mad is the question. Like, people that are liking this are going to the mines, okay, if implemented, if this policy is implemented. I don't want this policy to be implemented. I don't even think Asmongold was being serious here. He's just trying to be bold and trying to be talked about, and he succeeded. But like, and XQC is joining in on the conversation because he wants to present himself as a centrist as well, okay? A center-right figure himself. He will say it was a joke and Hassan crashed out about it. I mean, the irony is I also joked, but what I'm crashing out about is the stupidity of other people that know better trying to be like, well, actually, I'm going to defend this policy on its virtues alone. That's what's more frustrating to me because, like, yeah, I saw this take from Asmongold and I was like, this is ridiculous. It's sad that there's so many people that liked it, not realizing that they would also be victim to this policy, Asmongold included. I made a joke about it. I said, it's so funny to always imagine that you wouldn't be in the mines if such a scheme were to be implemented. And then Mighty Keith said, I find it wild. He says horrible things like this about a parent's mentally disabled children, but when people bring up his dead mom, he cries on YouTube about how the world's being mean to him. I don't get it. Saying like, you are so unempathetic, but you have the capacity to demonstrate empathy when someone is attacking you in an unempathetic fashion. This tweet has 46K likes in X's community. Juicers see this. XQC's audience is also aware of his ways, you know? Centrism fans and centrism understanders will take the argument at face value, okay? They will never scratch the surface where they'll just be like, yeah, dude, this is what actually is happening here, you know? Like, remember, the conversation started with me saying, don't ever let anyone tell you your voices don't matter, right? There's real discontent towards Elon Musk. In some instances, that discontent is so vast and so insurmountable that it leads to literal vandalism, okay? Acts of vandalism. This isn't to say that acts of vandalism are good, okay? I'm not saying that. I have a platform. I can't say that, regardless of what I may actually think. Having said that, like, this isn't even about the cars burning on fire anyway. I'm literally talking about the ways in which the discontent towards Elon Musk has blown up. So much so that he is basically saying he's going to leave. But then people turn around and go, no, he's leaving because they're lighting Teslas on fire. As in, they're taking Elon's reaction, which he hasn't even delivered himself personally, at face value. They're imagining an alternative that Elon is actually quitting because people are lighting the cars on fire, not realizing that people are lighting the cars on fire because of how little they want to do with Elon Musk due to his actions. And then the centrism defenders look to that argument and go, yeah, he's right. It is actually because the cars are being lit on fire. And Hassan is saying it's good to light the cars on fire. I never said that. Why did you choose the QRT Hassan on some shit? He's objectively correct on his head of 1,000 actual moronic things he's posted, bro. Defend it. Violence equals voice. Look who's doing the defending now. It's so annoying. Whenever people take this like unnuanced position in an effort to defend right-wing attitudes and right-wing ideology, it's so goddamn frustrating when people will just look to this and go, well, you know, he's making a good point here. Like, the conversation has shifted from the point that I was making, which is that there is very real discontent towards Elon Musk. And that discontent is so vast and so powerful that it even erupts in acts of vandalism against property. It also has turned into people not purchasing Tesla vehicles in general. This isn't an argument. You're telling me I'm supposed to just assume someone means something other than what they said. There wasn't even any context that could allude to him meaning what you're saying. You just pulled it out of your ass to defend someone who has the same ideals. I don't understand. Why is XQC addressed as a relevant interlocutor? Because whether we agree to it or not, the reality of the matter is people that put forth these incredibly silly, incredibly dumb positions are actually getting a lot of prominence because other people are even dumber than they are. I don't even personally think that XQC is authentic as to why he's arguing on these positions. Like, I don't think he's authentically arguing for this shit. I think he's doing it specifically for, he sees Asmongold's metrics and he's like, well, I want a piece of that. Obviously, there's a lot of dumb who will eat up whatever garbage I put their way if I were to assume a centrist, enlightened centrist right-wing position. This isn't new. This is how Dave Rubin became a right-wing figure. This is how Tim Pool started off as a right-wing figure. So many right-wing commentators. Jordan Peterson did this as well. I always thought XQC was pretty right-wing. Yeah, you were unfamiliar with his commentary then. Because only a couple years prior, before he like did the Gamba stuff, he used to be a very empathetic person. Like, he wasn't the most well-read, but his moral guidance was born out of being nice to people. if you hear him talk about like not saying the R word, you know, and shit like that, you can understand it. It sounds stupid and it sounds silly, but I think it's instructive about a person's point of view, about what their guiding, motivating principles are. He's been getting yelled at by other Twitch communities recently, so we hit the fuck Hassan button, that's all. Yeah, but it doesn't even work now because that just causes resentment from his audience that understands to this day, at least right now, they understand who the real villain of society is. They see Donald Trump as the real villain of society. So, and they see Elon Musk as the real villain of society because they are. So when XQC says Hassan, they don't read that as like, yeah, you know what? Hassan's Hassan is doing it again. He's just being a moron. Oh, that guy. They go, you're being a moron for saying Hassan in this process because we agree with him. When did it become meta to hate on you? It took many, many years to get to this point. It ultimately doesn't mean anything either. It's just a meta for some communities. It's the meta for drama slop tubers. It's the meta for a lot of like these centrist apolitical types. But it's not necessarily the meta across the board. Obviously, if that was the case, I wouldn't have as vast an audience as I do currently. And the meta has changed anyway. For the uneducated and the young, I am seen as like a beacon of woke. I'm seen as like the arbiter of all things woke. And from the liberal side, I'm seen as the arbiter of all things that that demonstrate their moral depravity because there is a different alternative out there and they don't want to abide by that. And they want to maintain the current systems in spite of how deeply unpopular that maintenance looks like for the average person, so much so that they went and voted for Donald Trump. It was around the Tate time. That's when being compared to you was a compliment to, I don't know about this Hassan guy. Yeah, it is what it is. But the Hassan exit ramp doesn't work as it once did. I think the grace you give the right-wing men that stream stands opposed to what I've seen from the women on the left saying, just the pattern I've noticed. I know you're great at outreach, but no need to defend the lost. They yearn to wander. I don't just give grace to right-wing men that stream. I give grace to everyone. And that is precisely the reason why I've been able to create a community of like-minded individuals that have had their minds changed. This is a big part of what I believe in.